Mark, where we talk a lot about mortgages sometimes, but a lot of times we don't talk about mortgages. But my company is Texas Mortgage Source, a little sign there. That's what it says. And that's what I do. Now, what I like to do more than talk about that is bring on what I call subject matter experts in different fields. And, most humans, including myself, we use this phrase a lot. And the phrase goes something like, it's called an old friend. I met with an old friend for lunch, or I talked to an old friend. Well, with this guest, what I say to that is hold my beer because I've, I've known this guy since 1974. So Martin's an old friend of mine, and he's actually a repeat visitor or guest on my show, and he is an expert again in an area that's I think very, very important. As most of you all know, I'm moving my focus in my mortgage space business into reverse mortgages. And with that is different areas that seniors need to know about. And Medicare obviously is a big one. Martin, I called him a couple of years ago. I'll be 67 in October. And about 2 years ago, August, I called him and said, hey, man, I need some help. And he came by the house and we had a nice visit, and he shared his expertise, which is very fascinating. It seems like it's a simple thing. It's not a simple thing. So introduce my buddy, Martin Fry, who I used to play football with. As I recall, you were a quarterback or safety?
Quarterback, yeah.
Quarterback, see? It hadn't been that long. It's only been 50 years. We go back next year for our 50-year reunion. Lord have mercy. So now we're talking about Medicare. And so, Martin, introduce yourself and tell the people who you are.
So I'm Martin Fry. I'm a licensed Medicare agent. It's called a health and life agent, which are requirements for that. And I focus on helping people navigate into and through Medicare, whether I'm assisting you when you're approaching Medicare age or eligibility. Right. Some people start Medicare after 65 because they worked on a large group or had coverage from a large group health plan, or people who are already on Medicare and are looking to make some changes.
So, okay, great. So let's start. You were kind enough to kind of send me some questions or some themes, if you will, around this subject. So let's kind of talk about that. Let's start with the basic. Tell us about what is Medicare for people who are, going to be approaching that age in the next year or so.
So Medicare is government delivered health insurance, and it's broken up into parts. And you've heard all the crazy ads on the television, Part A and Part B and Part C and Part D. And it's sad that they use letters to label these things because they don't mean anything.
Right.
So understanding the parts by nature is confusing. I live in Austin, so I have a lot of clients who are engineers, and they apply logic to Medicare, and it fails them because Medicare is not a logical process. It wasn't designed, conceived, built, or operated by engineers or organized people.
Right.
So you kind of have to know the
government
to navigate it. Yeah, I mean, it is
like a puzzle.
There's aspects of it that are wonderful, but it can be truly difficult to understand.
Well, I certainly appreciate your help with me because I've used it quite a bit. I will say in the last couple of years, I've had some heart stuff going on, and it's really a beautiful thing for me to have. So talk about the different sections of Medicare. What people need to know, kind of a 30,000-foot view on A, B, C, and D.
So from a functional standpoint, everybody who's going to be on Medicare needs to have Medicare Parts A and B. And most of us prepay our lifetime premiums on Part A, best described as what's called hospital room and board. It gets you into a hospital to stay overnight.
Okay.
Part B is the part of Medicare most people think about. It's the part where you see a doctor. You are being cared for by some healthcare professional.
Okay.
Or having some kind of medication injected into you. So when you go to the doctor, when you interact with a doctor, no matter where that happens, that's Part B. That's what most people think about. And drugs was the fourth section to be added, and that is drugs. It's the only one that by accident makes sense because
it's a D.
Drugs.
Yeah, that's right. Is there a C? What is C? Is there a C?
C is Advantage plans, which is an alternative to original Medicare. I am biased towards maintaining your original Medicare rights and eligibilities because it gives you access to much greater care options. And there are certain rights, in my opinion, you do not want to give up.
What do you go back and explain
Now,
that part a little bit? Explain a little bit what you're saying. What do you mean?
so when you move to an Advantage plan, which is all where all the advertising is spent, you have transferred your rights and eligibilities of having original Medicare, and you have transferred those to an insurance company.
Okay.
And they have the ability to change their policies every year, to cancel a policy any year, and force you to go shopping. If you retain your original Medicare rights and eligibilities and you pair them with a Medicare supplement like you did,
Yep.
they can never take that coverage away from you.
Okay.
Right?
As long as you're paying the premium, you're good.
Correct. The insurance company does not have the option to alter that coverage in any way.
Okay.
And so that means if you wanted to go to a specialty hospital like MD Anderson or the Mayo Clinic or John Hopkins or Brigham and Women's or wherever,
Right.
you can go and your insurance is fully intact.
Okay.
If you have a local Advantage plan, your network is the local sub network for that insurance company within that market.
I see.
So it's a much fewer options for care.
Okay.
And I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, I know. And you shared a lot of that with me 2 years ago. And I really appreciate you taking care of me from that perspective. I tend to agree with you. Now let's talk about the word advantage. Are there any advantages to the Advantage plan at all?
Anytime a word like that is applied to health insurance, it's a marketing phrase, if you will.
Sure.
There are scenarios where having an Advantage plan makes sense. For my clients, which is probably over 1,000 now, I have a handful of clients who are dual citizens.
Okay.
And they live in both the United States and another country, and that other country provides them with nationalized health care. And if they spend 4 months a year in the United States and the rest of the time in England, well, they're going to get all their major health care in England because I call it prepaid or tax paid. And they really only need emergency room care here. But there's some specificity around different countries and whether Medicare considers that health coverage creditable, which means so you can have somebody who goes and works overseas for a number of years past 65, and when they return to the United States, if that company's health coverage was considered creditable and they had access to it, like England and Spain, they can come back to the United States and have all their what's called initial eligibility rights, which means they can get any plan they want and there's no health questions. There's no qualifying. And we each have an initial eligibility period, whether it's 65 or later, where we can get any plan without consideration for health conditions. After a short amount of time on Medicare, either 6 months for a supplement, or if you want to change from an Advantage plan to a supplement, you have less than 12 months to do that. And you can retain what are called guaranteed issue rights. But you have to do it within that window. Otherwise, you have to go through medical underwriting and qualify. And they're going to check.
Is that within the first year, you said? The first
within
year?
the first year. So if you start on an Advantage plan, you have within that first year, first 12 months, to switch to a supplement without underwriting.
Okay.
If you go 13 months, you have missed that window, and now you're going to have to answer health questions.
Yeah, and if you're in bad health at that point, you may not be able to qualify for something.
Yeah, so for people who start Medicare with problematic health issues, congestive heart failure, COPD, whatever, I need to take that into consideration because that means if they're shopping for a supplement, this is their one time to shop. They don't have any future shopping options based on current underwriting. Yeah, within the state of Texas.
Now, not that anybody would, but is there a penalty if you don't file for Medicare or apply for it?
Well, yeah, there are late enrollment penalties. So when
Explain
you
that. I didn't understand that part.
Yeah, so there's never a penalty on Part A because if you've worked at least 10 years, you've prepaid all your Part A premiums. So you're never going to be charged for Part A, but you do have to apply for it. And some people apply for Part A only and pair it with their large employer plan. But when you become eligible for Part B, you have a certain window, and depending upon your turning 65 or whether you're going on to Medicare, the windows are different. So it's important to talk to somebody who knows what those are. And once you go beyond that window, you start to incur penalties for every month that or year that you didn't have that coverage. And those penalties are permanent. You cannot pay them off. You can't stop them. They go on forever, which
Wow.
is ridiculous. And Part B and Part D have those.
Okay.
And so for a lot
What
of
kind of penalty? How much money are you talking about? $20 a month penalty, or is it?
well, it can be from $3 a month to a whole lot more.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes it becomes pretty excessive.
I'm not paying a penalty, am I?
No, sir. We avoided that.
Woohoo! Yeah. So let's talk about supplemental plans then, because you have me on, as I recall, a Plan G. Is that correct? And in that category of supplemental plan, there's all sorts of different letters, if nothing else. Is that correct?
Correct. So
yeah. And tell me about why we did that.
The problem with labeling is Medicare labels things by letter, and then the insurance companies label their plans by letter. And so that can be very confusing to people who say, I have Part A, I have Part B, I have Part D, and I have a G, right? Well, it's actually a Plan G and not a part, right?
Right, Plan G.
Why I organize these things into a table and I designate for everybody what their coverages actually are and give them a little map, because a lot of times we'll work for an employer and we'll have an insurance card or two, right? Well, when you're on Medicare, you may have 4 or 5 cards in your wallet.
Right.
Because you have a original Medicare card, a supplement card, a drug plan, a dental card, and sometimes additional coverage like cancer. So you can end up with a deck of cards, which really throws people off.
Yeah.
So knowing how to organize that and keep track of it, know what you need to carry with you and what you keep in a file can be kind of important, because people are used to making annual decisions on insurance. And with Medicare, you can literally make a lifetime decision. Right. And that can be very important as a benefit or an option.
Yeah.
So because I worked in cardiology and cardiothoracic surgery for so long, I apply some really simple rules to this. Don't burn bridges you don't have to burn, and keep as many options open as you can for the future.
Okay.
Right? And that, if you apply that, you look at things a little differently, because I ask a lot of health questions of people because I have to do everything that's HIPAA compliant and encrypted. And I want to know health conditions because it can affect the recommendation. Now, the insurance companies do not get to know any of that information. If you are in your initial eligibility period and you have guaranteed issue rights, they don't get to know. But it can affect your budget and how you like to spend money and how you've saved money, and whether you have a health savings account or resources can affect what I would recommend. Because there are plans that will partner with you to share short-term risks that are small, but not zero. In exchange for that, you could get a lifetime lower premium. Okay, cool, right? But for somebody who starts Medicare and says, I'm going to get both my knees replaced, I'm going to have my lenses replaced, I'm going to have shoulder surgery, I'm like, okay, time out. You want a plan that's going to minimize your out-of-pocket cost. Okay. Which is different, because you can have something fixed, but it's not a chronic condition, right?
Yeah.
Once you get to these, if you think about insurance from the insurance company's perspective and how they look at us, they don't want known cost beyond their actuarial calculations. So what does that mean? Well, they expect a certain amount of stuff to happen in a population.
Sure.
Right. And they don't want to take a known additional loss, because they work within it's all regulated. They work in what are called claims ratios. Well, how many dollars do they take in premiums? Then how much do they pay out? Well, they're basically trying to target it so that they can run their business, all their expenses, and pay everybody and pay their taxes and make a profit within a 15% window. Not that they have a 15% profit, but they're going to pay out 85%. And recently, many of them paying more than 85% in claims. One company paid more than 100% in claims in 2024.
Wow.
Yeah, it was post-COVID, right? So a lot of healthcare got delayed because of COVID, and it really shifted some of the dynamics within the market.
Well, let's that kind of moves into an important conversation around cost.
Mm-hmm.
Because as I recall, we met in 2024 in the
Mm-hmm.
fall of 24, and it seemed like there was a 2-year look back on income or something. I was making good money in 2022, and I had to pay a premium, and then they've since reduced that because my income has kind of gone down being in the mortgage business. So talk about how that works, because that's in itself is a little confusing.
So for most of my clients, they have to deal with something called IRMA. Well, what
Okay.
the heck is IRMA? I call it a success tax. It's called it's a Medicare income related monthly adjustment amount. So what that means is, and it's often my client's largest expense if they can't appeal it to reduce it or eliminate it. So what happens is when you start Medicare, let's say it's July of 2027 coming up.
Okay.
Right? Well, Medicare, Social Security, and the IRS are going to look at your tax return for 2025.
Okay. 2 years back.
That's going to be it's a 2-year look back. They're going to look at your 2025 tax return, and based on your adjusted gross income, line 11, and based on your tax-free interest income, line 2A, they're going to add those numbers together and see where it falls. And they're going to look at a table and go, oh, well, you made that amount. We're going to charge you an extra $200 for Medicare Part B, or an extra $450 a month for Part B, right? Well, that's a lot more money than you're going to spend on the policies that I enroll you in to supplement your Medicare.
Yeah.
Right? It's
got it.
kind of silly, right? But if in 2027, let's say you retire March of 27, and now you're living off investment income, well, you can appeal that. And there's a particular form that says, hey, 2025 is not my current reality, right? And you can prove it with a tax return, say a 26 tax return for 27, or you can estimate your 2027 adjusted gross income and tax-free interest income. Now, there has to be a life change event, of which there are 8 approved life changes events. The most common are work reduction or work stoppage, and that triggers the ability to appeal. Now, there are certain forms of other income that they add in that you did not pay taxes on. And what they calculate is called your modified adjusted gross income. So if you were like one of my clients who sold a business and now makes $1 million a year in tax-free interest income on municipal bonds, well, he thought he was going to avoid an IRMA because it's a tax-free income. Well, they add that back in.
Okay.
So
that was a question. Capital gains would also count in that.
Well, in capital gains has a particular treatment. And in this context, in a radio show, I'm not going to give legal or financial advice about that.
Oh, sure.
I'm going to tell you that you need to talk to your tax accountant, your tax attorney, your financial planner to make sure you've got that mapped properly. So I like to talk to people when they're 63 and 62 and 61, particularly if they're business owners and they plan on selling their business, because I can give them enough information that they can create a strategy of how to manage this if they want.
Okay.
Sometimes the best strategy is to pull all the income you can into 1 year and pay the maximum IRMA and get it over with.
Okay.
Or I have another client she's selling to her 4 partners, the rest of the business. And instead of the buyout going over 3 years, they're going to spread it over 10 years.
Okay.
Because it's going to dramatically reduce her IRMA impact.
So let's say worst case, and somebody's still making a lot of money and they're retired and they're on Medicare. What could they expect worst case out of pocket? I mean, monthly.
Well,
$500 a month, $1,000 a month.
I'll read off the numbers, right? So the baseline currently for 2026 for Part B is $202.90.
Okay.
Right? But depending upon whether you file single or as a couple, there are amounts that can be added. And those additions are $81, another $202, $324, $446, $487, and that's for Part B. And then they add starting at $14.50 all the way up to $91 a month for Part D.
Okay. Is it A, free?
It's not free, it's prepaid through payroll deduction taxes.
That we've already paid?
You've prepaid it. As long as you worked for 40 quarters and you paid
Okay. It's
payroll
prepaid.
deduction or self-employment taxes, you have prepaid your lifetime premiums for Part A.
Okay. So what I'm paying now is B and D.
Correct.
Personally. All right. Got it.
Correct. Yep.
All right. Now let's talk about if people want to get a hold of you. Talk about timing. How soon should people be thinking about that? 62, 63,
So I'll use some real numbers based on 26. If you are filing as an individual and you make less than $109,000 a year adjusted gross income,
okay,
contact me 6 months ahead of time.
All right.
3 months
how do we find you, Martin? I know how to find you, but how do the people find you?
Well, MedicareATX.com.
There you go.
There's a contact page, and there's also a list of my free Medicare 101 classes that I do in the Austin area.
Love it. Love it.
But the website's fine. There's a lot of resources there, and the contact form's easy. So what happens when people contact me, I get an email notification because they have to put their email in, and I send them an email. And in that email is a link to my calendar. So they can schedule a call because my calendar fills up pretty quick and pretty solid.
Sure.
And it ensures that I'll be available for you because you set up the time.
Yeah, and those are usually 30-minute talks or so?
Well, you've got an option of 15 or 30-minute phone calls, 15 or 30-minute Zoom calls.
Okay.
Later on in follow-up, if it's possible, I always prefer in-person meetings. Not always possible for my clients who are distant and in other states, but I do a lot on Zoom, and I like to get out of the office at least once a day. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
Absolutely,
for sure. So tell us. Let me back up. A question I always like to have is, tell me what I don't know. In other words, I don't know much about it. What can you share that somebody really needs to know? You've shared a lot, but
so one of the topics I cover in my classes, I cover because of it's information that's not publicly available.
Okay.
So if someone wanted to research all of this stuff on their own, which you should be able to do, no matter what, you will never have access to all the information you need to make a fully informed decision. Now, that might be legal for the insurance companies to do that, but I have an ethical problem with it.
Right.
Because in your business, imagine that you didn't have to tell people that you were giving them a balloon note mortgage or an adjustable rate mortgage, right?
Yeah.
You would go to jail for that.
That's right. Yeah, they take your license pretty quick.
Well, so in the Medicare supplement space, the only thing consumers get to see is the current premium quote.
That's
it doesn't give you any history, and it doesn't give you any future projections. And companies know that. So a lot of companies have extremely low initial premiums. Let's say Plan G, which is the most popular. It's for most companies, it's the exact same coverage. By law, the coverages cannot vary and they cannot change. Why is there $100 difference from the lowest to the highest premium in a given zip code?
Well, they're trying to buy business up front when the teaser rate. And they could raise them in the future.
And the strategy for some of those companies is after 3 to 5 years, they're going to start to skyrocket the rates.
Mm-hmm.
And you might be paying dramatically more. I'm talking multiples, 2, 3, 4 times more for the same coverage than a different plan. Because some companies have a strategy that's called premium stability. We want people to sign up and we want them to be on our plan for a long time. That's their business model. Others
which is what I have, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
But there are other companies that literally say we expect to lose 70% of our clients in the first 10 years because our premiums are going to go through the roof. Wow. Now, a lot of those people who are still healthy, I can put them through underwriting and move them to a better plan. But if they're unhealthy, their choice is they pay these exorbitant premiums or they move to an Advantage plan.
Okay.
And I don't.
You can always move to the Advantage plan without underwriting. Is that correct?
Correct. Every year. Yeah.
But of course, then you have some coverage limitations there.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
you don't have control. You can't lock in your coverage.
Yeah. Is the 202 you talked about, is that what I'm paying out of my Social Security check?
Correct.
Okay. Well, my
Yes.
first one will be hitting in September, by the way, and I'll take you to lunch on that. Okay. That's about all it will pay for.
Well, I'm not allowed to be compensated or receive gifts from clients, so we'll have to go
You
Dutch.
can buy my lunch. I don't have that limitation.
So the maximum I can give away is $1.95 lunch.
Well, you can take me fishing. Do something, you know.
That's
Well, we
right.
only got a few seconds left. We got
Sure.
a minute left, Martin Fried. So leave us with something, a story or
Making sure that people understand your health risks who are helping you. And here's the story. I had a person, I asked him about certain health conditions. He informed me how his mother died. And I knew that was a genetic risk. So I put him on a plan that minimized his risk. And though he did everything he could to optimize his health and to avoid the risk, he still had a hemorrhagic stroke about a year ago.
okay.
And about 3 months ago, they put his skull back on after about $2 million in healthcare.
Wow.
And in each of the years involved, his out of pocket was less than $300.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So all the physical therapy, everything, the
Wow.
surgeries, it was because I understood his health risk, right? Now, I
Yeah.
don't put everybody on that plan, but
No, I get it.
if you have a lot of risk, I sure as heck going to put you on that plan.
Well, again, we are out of time. It says 0 on my clock here, but I sure have enjoyed it, Martin. Always good to
Good.
talk with you and catch up with you. And I
Absolutely.
appreciate the information for my little audience. And let's get together soon.
We'll do it soon. Thanks, man.